Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today, we'll be doing kind of a ultimate blue Swiss diver face-off. This is a pretty common price range for those looking to purchase their first quote-unquote real watch. Diver watches are also very popular in this demographic for, of course, being known for their sturdiness, their classic appeal, as well as very versatile designs. So at right around $100, street price, we're not talking we're not taking into account some of the inflated retail costs. These are kind of my top 5 choices. There are going to be some honorable mentions here that are going to go out to the Squall 50 Atmos, the Glycine Combat Sub, and the Steinhardt Ocean 1. Those 3 definitely are also heavy hitters within this price range. But honestly, I feel like they each kind of have their shortcomings, and that's kind of the reason why these particular pieces ended up making the cut and those didn't. For me, the main drawback of the Squall was there was really no factory bracelet option. There is the mesh, which is nice, but it's a brushed finish, and essentially the 50 Atmos doesn't come in a brushed finish itself. Its case, it either comes all polished or there's various matte or bead blastings, but there actually isn't a brushed finish. So because there's kind of a lack of a perfectly matching bracelet option, for me, that's why it did not make the cut. The Glycine Combat Sub, great watch, but I feel that because of the kind of price range that you can find them for, it's a little bit expensive for the actual spec of the watch, with no options for applied indices, and for having very simplistic clasps, and of course the design is slightly more derivative of other designs versus some of the more original pieces that we have featured here. And then, of course, the Steinhardt Ocean 1 range, which people normally compare to the Christopher Ward C60 Trident range. For me, Steinhardt definitely makes quality pieces. There's just a couple of design elements that I'm hoping that they'll update soon, as far as kind of their straight case shape, as where the lugs they don't really wrap around the wrist or hug the wrist. They just kind of jet out a little bit, and then at the pumped up sizes, it really makes a difference on the wrist. And of course, I feel their designs are still a little bit too derivative in comparison to some of the more original pieces that we're going to feature here today. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start out on the left. We'll start with the Certina DS-Action Diver. Okay, so some of the key attributes are, it's 43 millimeters. It's 200 meters water resistant. It's an ISO certified diver. And it is partially loomed, as far as that nice sunburst bakelite style bezel, which is very cool. Let me get it on the wrist here. Okay, on the wrist, it definitely has a very nice, chunky, of course, very sporty tool watch feel. That sunburst dial and bezel really just plays with the light there, so you can see the dark hues with the light accents there, and it's which makes it very versatile, because it does carry a couple different colors, which is very nice. Definitely, really, although very simple case, it's just finished very well. Some of the pros, I'd say, is that it's bang per buck here. It's definitely the lowest end of the spectrum, as far as how cheap you can get these for. Prices normally $500-$600. Of course that's not retail, but that's about the street price you'll find for them. So definitely a great deal from a company that has a lot of history, founded in 1888. So this piece really punches above its weight class, and that's why it was included here within this group. Some of the cons I'd say are the 21 millimeter lugs. You know, the clasp is just okay, and the date window is a little bit disruptive. It's, you know, I think if they would have done a blue date disc with white font, it definitely would have blended a little bit better. Or, you know, if they would have just, of course, could have put it in a more traditional spot, or maybe put a frame on it, something. I mean, it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, but there's not much to look at it. So I'm not too bothered by it, but you know, that's probably, you know, one of the cons that I would consider. So from there, we will move on to the Christopher Ward C60 Trident, which is kind of on the other side of the spectrum as far as bang per buck, right? Now this watch here, this definitely punches above its weight class, but to a whole new level compared to this Certina DS-Action Diver. Also, it's a whole different cost, of course. It's you're gonna pay more, but you're gonna get a lot more. So some of the key features are it's 42 millimeters, 600 meter, water resistant. It has a ceramic bezel insert, which is great. And of course that classic wave dial. Now let's get it on the wrist. Okay, on the wrist now, it's you know, it's extremely, you know, feature rich. It's very classy, and but at the same time still bold. It really is a standout piece, although it is a little sedate compared to some of the other designs here. You know, of course, super feature rich. It really checks all the boxes and more. And honestly, it's comparable to watches costing over 4 times as much. You know, I'd say the only cons would be, you know, it has the least amount of brand recognition, being that Christopher Ward is, you know, a boutique brand, or, you know, a micro brand, some would say. So, you know, you're not going to get that same name recognition that you would get with this piece. But the cool thing is that it's you know, it has a story. Not everyone's going to know what a Christopher Ward is off the bat, and it's kind of a fun thing you can do, you know, with other watch insiders, and you can tell a little story that goes along with it. So all in all, I'd say, you know, this watch is really good enough to be your one watch, and, you know, if you have a very small affordable collection. But at the same time, if you have, you know, a really high-end collection, this kind of could be the ultimate beater watch. That's how affordable it still is, that somebody could wear a piece that's so feature rich and well built, and, you know, really just wear it kind of as a daily beater. So that's very nice that it kind of can facilitate both ends of the spectrum there. All right, so next we'll take a look at the Longines HydroConquest. Now, this piece is the second generation. Key attributes are it's 41 millimeters, 300 meter water resistant. It's this great H-link bracelet. Let's get it on the wrist. And of course, guys, if you want to get full reviews, they definitely are posted, so you'll see those on my channel for the full detailed reviews of each watch. For the HydroConquest on the wrist, you know, it is just sleek and classic. It's really well suited for any occasion. It is which just makes it, you know, kind of infinitely versatile. So it's definitely a great piece. That sunburst dial, very classic. That aluminum bezel, you know, it's one of the better aluminum bezels in the business. It has a real nice, almost fade to it, to where it almost looks like it was a black bezel that had a little bit of patina added to it. So that's definitely a nice feature. Some of the pros are now, as opposed to the Christopher Ward, when you have a Longines, technically, you could get the highest brand recognition here, because it does have the most illustrious past. Of course, it is extremely versatile. It has a great finishing, as you can see under these studio lights here. That brushing is just extremely uniform, and those lugs just fit to amazing tolerances. And one of the biggest pros is in this group is the movement. It actually is powered by 2892 ETA base movement, so it's actually a step above the average 2824 SW200 that you'll find in the rest of the crowd. So definitely a great piece. Some of the cons, it does also have an odd lug width, which is 21 millimeters. The Lume isn't great, and it although it is it's more of a love it or like it. There's really no hating this. At the same time, it is a little bit of vanilla design, so it's a little less exciting, but definitely, which makes it more versatile though, and it's still very original, and it's a great piece. Okay, so next we'll move on to the Oris Aquis date. And so the Oris Aquis here. Key attributes, it's got a 43 millimeter case, 300 meters, water resistant, great display case back. Although it's a very minimally decorated movement, really just has that red rotor, the signature red rotor from Oris. That has a really very nice ceramic bezel, of course, an amazing bracelet. Just the quality on it, it's just really a great solidly built piece. Now let me get it on the wrist here. On the wrist, it is just, two words to describe it, I'd say modern and masculine. This is a man's watch, and it's a design that is very current and very modern. Doesn't pay homage to, any other pieces that are out there. Very original design. The design language is Oris's design language. It's really a piece all its own. And of course it is very feature rich and original, and it's from a very hip independent brand. They're not part of the Swatch Group, so there is a certain level of authenticity that still comes with Oris being an independent brand. Even down to their kind of tagline is real watches for real people. So that's something that's definitely to be appreciated. I'd say probably the only cons would be, there are proprietary lugs, as you can see. So you won't be able to switch this out to NATOs or on leather or anything like that. And of course the looks are a bit polarizing. It's more of a love it or hate it. But all in all, I would say that, really the Oris Aquis has a great case to be the best watch, and it's the best dive watch in its price range. Although all these are all dive watches, I'd say the attributes of a dive watch, specifically the Oris, definitely kind of has the specs to beat everything. So now we're going to close with the Rado D-Star 200. Key attributes: 41 millimeters, 200 meters water resistant, ceramic bezel, insert with liquid metal indexes, as you can see. So a little shared technology with some of their Swatch Group cousins from Omega, which is very cool. And it has a really great display case back with I'd say out of all the competition here, the most decorated movement. So if we can get the camera to focus, as you can see. Ooh, let me just wipe it down real quick. A little foggy there. Okay, so as you can see, nice perlaging, not just a signed rotor, but an actual custom milled rotor, which is nice. So really Nice feature, very feature rich piece here. Let me get it on the wrist. Now on the wrist, I'd say that, you know, this watch is stylish. It just oozes style, and, you know, it's very, you know, this is a watch that kind of expresses you stylistically. It's extremely eye-catching. You know, it has that retro modern design, and it's just, you know, a little bit more classic looking than other Ratto watches, which can be very bold and very polarizing. So although in this crowd this is a real looker, you know, and it's actually probably one of the more tame designs that you'll see come out of Ratto. Some of the pros, of course, I mean, for me, this watch really is the detail king of the group. The presentation, the execution, you know, it is just so finely executed. And, you know, this watch really just has legs. It is a true wrist candy piece, you know. I'd say out of all the pieces here, I look at this, and honestly, this is the one that I consider wrist candy. So some of the cons, of course, also has proprietary lugs, you know, and you know, less conventional clasp for a diver's watch, you know. But all in all, I'd say, you know, this is a very quirky desk diver that is extremely well executed. And like I said, it is just, you know, great looking piece with legs. So let's go ahead and get the Lume going here. What I'll do is I'll charge these guys up with my little UV light here to make sure we present these guys at full charge, and make sure everybody's, you know, as best represented for this little face off here. Okay, so as you can see, the Lume is very nice. You know, starting with the Certina, you know, it has that partially loomed index in the bezel, which is very cool, and it looks really great. Next to it, you'll see the C60. You know, although the indices are very small, the layers of Lume that are in there are, you know, fairly thick, so it definitely has a nice glow to it. And then you'll see, of course, the HydroConquest already fading fast, because you know what, it is they are just printed indices, and because of that, they don't have that much Lume. So they're not going to be able to hold a charge as well, and they are going to fade faster. But, you know, it's basically the trade-off is having outstanding daytime legibility, and execution was kind of the trade-off that you lost a little bit of the nighttime legibility. And then you see the Oris Aquis, which I think here kind of has the overall win as far as Lume goes. I haven't hit it again with the black light, and it is still just pumping away there. And then next to it, you can see the Ratto, which actually has a very bright Lume, but you know, those are very small indices and very slender markings on the hands as far as the Lume goes. So let's just one more time get these charged back up, just for the sake of one last Lume look there. Okay, we'll hit the lights. So, I mean, really, closing thoughts, you can't go wrong with any of these pieces. You know, each watch is really the best at something. You'd really be hard-pressed to find any watches that are objectively better without going way up in price range, you know. So I'd say the Certina, you know, that's best, you know, value for money. The Christopher Ward, really overbuilt, you know, another bang for buck, but to the next level, you know, but you're going to have to pay a little bit more for it. But you're going to definitely get a lot in return. And then you go to the HydroConquest. I feel like that is really just the best sports watch here. And then, you know, I'd say that the Aquis, again, probably the best diver's watch. you know, purely based on dive watch attributes, you know, it definitely has everything and then some. And then the Ratto is really kind of that classic dress diver. And you know, it might, just because of the way it's executed, it might just be the best flat out watch here, as far as if you just added up all the points for every little attribute and every way that everything was finished, and you kind of looked at things purely objectively. You know, I think the Ratto definitely has a strong case, for which, you know, for possibly being the best watch here. So each watch is kind of the best at something. And really, you know, these go great in any collection. I'd say, you know, I love blue divers, but, you know, of course, if you're probably gonna have one watch, it might, you might want a black or gray dial, which these pieces all do offer, as options. So, I mean, for me personally, I'd say the watch I find myself wearing the most would probably be the Oris Aquis. I think it's in a way has kind of become my signature watch because of how often I wear it. It's kind of my default. I think the colorway just really goes with you know, my personal style, and it's definitely more versatile because of the tone of the blues. I'd say, you know, second being most worn would probably be the HydroConquest. It is just that versatile, and then, you know, it kind of covers on the darker end, and then, you know, the more sleeker profile, and then from there it's kind of a toss up, with the Certina and the C60 and the D-Star 200. But the thing is when I do have those watches on wrist, it's a little bit like a treat. You know, it's not as mundane as when I wear, you know, kind of my go-to pieces. I when I get the, you know, the Ratto in rotation, I mean, I just look, I mean, that thing, it's just hard to keep your eyes off of it. It's a great piece. It's actually my wife's favorite watch that I own as far as looks wise. That's the one she definitely likes and gives me a lot of great compliments on, which probably the Oris would be the one that, you know, when you wear it, there's probably more of the guys are going to give you props and inquire about the type of watch that it is. You know, and then of course, if you're out and about or at, you know, you're walking through a jewelry store, it's nice to have something with the pedigree of the Longines on your wrist. At the same time, it's really nice to feel like a little bit of an insider when you have a C60 on, and not anybody knows what it is, but they know that it's quality just by looking at it. And then you have, you know, kind of the wild card, which is that DS-Action Diver, which I'm a huge fan of, and it's really a forum darling. And you know, judging by my YouTube views, it's definitely one of the most one of the more searched watches that are out there. So definitely great pieces. I'm not going to say which one is the best or the king. I will just say that they're all great for something, and I think that if you're looking for a Swiss-made diver, of course, automatic, you'd be hard-pressed to find anything better than what's in these groups here. So if you like the video, please hit like, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Thanks.
I met a girl in